Good evening. My name is Jill Rarig. I'm the citizen leader for the Project for Civic Engagement here in Northwest Michigan. The Project for Civic Engagement is a nonpartisan group of citizens who want to bring a voice and have conversation with the elected leaders at the city level, state level, and national level. Over the past, 6 months or so, we've been talking about a lot of different public policy issues on our Facebook page. One of the ones that has risen to the top is the issue in Traverse City about affordable housing and the related economic depth that seems to go with it. So today, there's about 6 of us from the project who are here to talk about different ideas, hopefully creative ideas, and talk a little bit about personal experiences with trying to find housing here in Traverse City. Our first speaker will be Lynn Van Ness.
Hello everyone, my name is Lynn Van Ness and I'm here to talk about how the lack of affordable housing in Traverse City has personally affected me and people I know and care for. The city has apparently had this item on the agenda for at least 5 years. I went back and looked at writings all the way back to 2009, and as far as I can see, it's been on somebody's agenda ever since then. But all I can see is that people are talking about it. Nothing has been done. I only know of one development that has at least gone on paper to be a multifamily housing development here in town. And the gentleman who was doing it was apparently driven out because of community input. And he was going to build market rate apartments, not low-income apartments. I am living in an apartment right now, and I have had a rent increase every year since I moved here. It's been 5 years now, and I will eventually be priced out of the market. I don't know what I will do then. I am a senior citizen, obviously. I live on a limited income, as they say, and it has been very difficult. I have looked for other places to live, and there is literally nothing under $1,000 a month. Let's put that at $1,200 a month. I can't afford it. And I don't want charity. When you put affordable housing into Google, what comes up is low-income housing. I don't want to live in a low-income housing development. I want a nice place to live that doesn't cost fortune arms and legs. And I don't know exactly how we're going to get there. I'm in the same position as many of the people who work here in Traverse City are in. They can't afford to rent housing here and have had to go way far outside the community to find something they can afford. And I wonder if the city fathers are truly aware that eventually we're going to have well-heeled retirees and middle-aged people here in town and nobody to work in the stores because they won't be able to afford to live here. And so I'm thinking that we must do something to encourage development of multifamily housing here. And it has to be downtown or very near downtown where people have easy access to the amenities and to jobs. And other than that, I don't have terribly many suggestions offhand.
My daughter and son-in-law had to go to North Dakota for a job because there was no jobs available here in Michigan. And from there, they went to Pennsylvania and then North Carolina. For health reasons, I had to move downstate and live closer to my family. And I wanted to move back here to Traverse City. I'm the owner of NetworkTraverseCity.com, and I help small businesses with their social media. and I don't charge to do that. But I really need to be in the area in order to help those small businesses. And I can't find a place here in Traverse City. I called the shelter, the Goodwill shelter, and was told that I'd have to call every day and maybe they'd have a spot for me. If not, I'd have to sleep in my tent. It wasn't a good option for me. I'm disabled and I'm on limited income, and it was a very frustrating experience. I have a MSHDA voucher, which should have made it easy for me to find an apartment because the state pays for a portion of my rent. And that wasn't the case. Even with the MSHDA voucher, there's just no housing available. I received several pages of lists from MSHDA when I was doing my housing search, and after going through all of them, maybe 3 possibilities came out of that, and out of those 3 possibilities, only 1 panned out. And I did the housing search for 4 months. And during that housing search, I went to MSHDA's website, it's .org, and on that website, there was absolutely no housing listed for a 1-bedroom apartment, but what there was very high-priced vacation rentals. And it was so frustrating to me to be in such a desperate search for housing and then not be able, or see only vacation rentals and not what I needed. My son and daughters recently moved back to Lake Ann. They got a job, and they are paying $1,100 for a small 2-bedroom cottage on Lake Ann, and they can't afford it. And I can just see them in 6 months struggling to feed themselves, and it's scary. And we really need to do something about the housing situation. I hope that you put your heads together and come up with a solution that's viable for not only the indigent, but the people that are working and that can't afford the housing that's available. $1,100 a month for an apartment that should be $600 or $700 is ridiculous, and I don't see an end to it. I just see that it's a tourist town and it's going to the moon and back. It's just crazy. Thank you for listening to me, and have a great day. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Travis Mandenberg. I am a veteran, and I am a 32-year-old who is trying to start a photography and video business here in town. Now, there's a lot that I could say to you about this topic. I could tell you that when I was living in Grand Rapids, me and 3 other people were able to rent out a house for $600 a month. That was larger by far than any apartments that I can find here, which cost much more money. I could tell you that 3 years ago when I moved away, I was paying that same $650 a month rent for an apartment right across from the college, which is a very nice location in town. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk some numbers, okay? Now, because we are a service industry driven workplace for the most part, most of our jobs are in shops and retail, people, you can expect them to make about $7.50 to maybe the high end would be $9 an hour. I've even heard of factory workers making less than $10 an hour wages. So let's make it about average, we'll say $8 an hour, okay? At 40 hours a week, well, 8 times 10 is 80, so times 2 would be 160, and that would give us $320 a week for wages. All right, that's a 40-hour week. A 2-bedroom apartment, the cheapest of which that I can find in town, being $750 a month. And then if you include cost of living, we can easily bump that up another $200 a month. So now we're looking at $950 a month. So you have a person who's working 40 hours a week, making $320 a month. So multiply that by 4, okay? You're looking at about $1,280 a month. So they're spending the majority of their wages on that apartment. We're not taking into account food when we give that $200 estimate. We're talking gas and electric and heating. So these are people who are literally working themselves to the bone. They're working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, to provide the minimal necessities that they need. And while a lot of the country says, you hear the argument all the time, that these minimum wage jobs are not designed to provide a working salary, what else do we have? Because there's not that much manufacturing work in Traverse City. So please take this into account when you're considering what everybody has to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andy Merrick. We're here to talk about homeless, and I think there's a whole lot of issues that we need to look at other than just the housing. The job issue, are there jobs available? The inventory, is there houses available? Transportation as well as utility costs. A lot of the houses might be affordable for rent, but you can't afford the utilities with them because the house wasn't built energy efficient, so you're spending a lot more money on utilities than you need to. Some of the numbers I've looked at, if you're making $18,000 a year, that's minimum wage working 40 hours a week. You may have to work 2 or 3 jobs to do that in this area. That gives you $1,500 a month. And if you talk to the experts in finance, you should spend about 25% of your income on housing. That gives you $375 a month for housing. There's no apartments, no housing, no any of that available in this area. So we have an inventory issue. There's a lot of people wanting to rent houses, not a lot of houses available for rent or apartments. If you're making $30,000 a year as a family, that gives you about $625 a month for rent. If you're not finding a 2 or 3 bedroom house or apartment in a $625 a month rental area in the Traverse City area, you've got to go outside. Now you're adding some some transportation costs, which makes it even more difficult, troubling, stressful for the young families who are trying to make a living here in the Traverse City area. It's a market-driven issue. Because of the lack of inventory, we don't have the prices that we need. I think one of the problems that we have is the government has gotten in the way. You look at some of the zoning requirements. You can't build small houses. You can't build in some of the areas 800 square foot or smaller houses. That leads to the bigger houses that are more expensive that then can't be rented out at a reasonable price. I think some of the issues are planning and zoning, although well-intended, has caused some unintended consequences that we need to review and look at. Are we making it where people can't build a house as a contractor that's affordable to sell at a reasonable rate for a person to have for a mortgage payment, or rent that's affordable? We need to look at the jobs. How can we attract better paying jobs to the area that we just don't currently have? We are a service-fed industry. A lot of waitressing, restaurants, retail that doesn't tend to pay very high. We need to look at getting better jobs into the area, and how can we do that? Some of it might be through less government interference, reducing some of the restrictions that we currently have. Unfortunately, it's no easy answer that we can just wave a magic wand and make all the problems go away, but I think through communication, through looking at all the options, would help out greatly. And transportation being a major issue in this area. We have Beta, which is doing a decent job in the Traverse City area, but the greater Grand Traverse area, the service just isn't up to par, where the housing is more affordable. So people are needing to spend money on transportation that they just don't have to get to the jobs that are available in the city.
My name is Betsy Coffia. I live here in Traverse City, over in the Traverse Heights neighborhood. I appreciate an opportunity to talk a little bit about an issue that I have actually thought quite a bit about, and I'm fortunate to have found some folks here in town who are renting a home to me at an affordable price, and I understand very much how fortunate I am. I'm also, it's on my mind a lot because the market, it's a good thing in a lot of ways that the real estate market is coming back and that property values are going up, but that it occurs to me quite often that my landlords may look at that and decide that maybe they could sell the house for quite a bit, and then I'll be looking. So I do think about that a lot, and I know that that's a very common thing for those of us who have been lucky enough to find housing in Traverse City. I also have a background in social work, and I've worked with a lot of families who are working, as the others pointed out. This is, of course, a very tourist-based economy and service-based economy, and that means a lot of folks are making not very much per hour. I've worked with a lot of young families who are spending 50% or more of their income on their housing, and they have children, and when you look at childcare costing as much in some cases as college tuition, it's a really big burden. It's a real concern. But I wanted to address that, and I also wanted to talk about some of my ideas and some of what I think are some solutions that we could really be looking to as a community. So I made this big flow chart, and I've got all these ideas for housing solutions. The first thing I really want to say, though, is that I applaud the City Commission and the County Commission for getting together and creating a task force, and I would like to ask and invite you to open that up and make it more of a community discussion with individuals who are actually experiencing this, because they're going to be able to inform the discussion with real life circumstances. They're going to be able to tell you, just like Travis did, the contrast from 3 years ago to today. They're going to be able to just fill out more than just facts and figures and graphs and charts, and give you some real life, this is what's up. So that, I also think it could be super helpful to treat this not in a silo, but bring together all the stakeholders. People who are looking for housing, people who rent housing, people who develop housing, the zoning administrators, the folks who are there to enforce the rules, and have more of a series of roundtable discussions that really allow us to get something that's more fleshed out. So some ideas for solutions. Mother-in-law apartments, that could be a citywide opportunity to allow homeowners to rent parts of their dwelling, like the over the garage apartment or accessory dwelling. That could be opened up in zoning. Changing up restrictive zoning on things such as the tiny house movement, where you're currently not allowed to build buildings smaller than a certain square footage footprint. Some of us are really open to the idea of living smaller, and we could really make that work if our local government worked with us on that. Tax credits for smaller dwellings, and perhaps dwellings that don't rely on cars. If it's like a bike-only community, multiple unit housing, you could offer some tax credits for that, and that would actually take up less parking space. It could be good in a lot of ways. Incentivize developers to do mixed income housing developments and offer tax credits and incentives. That is something I know here at our historic Building 50, which has been just so well received in our area and has made the New York Times for its innovation. They have done multi-income, and that is actually a trend around the country that I think we could really work with. Cooperative housing, okay. Cooperative housing, also repurposing existing buildings, commercial buildings, municipal buildings, schools that are no longer being used for that purpose. Those are just a few ideas of things that we could talk about in the way of solutions. We all know there's a problem, and I'm, again, thankful that you are looking at this, and I hope that you'll broaden the conversation. So thank you.
Hi, this is Jill Rarig again. I'll be the last person speaking with you about this issue. From my perspective, I've kind of seen what's going on here in Traverse City in two different ways. In order for me to be able to do the volunteer work that I want to do and to start a small business, I have fashioned myself a little studio in my house, and I now rent out the upper parts of my home. So I can make enough money to be able to start my small business and, like I say, do the volunteer work. As a result of that, I've had opportunity to talk to a lot of individuals who have been interested in my rental space, and it's amazing what I hear on the phone. I hear all the way from a business person who has no trouble funding and purchasing and renting my home, all the way to, the single mom and the married couple that has a couple of children, and they're willing to take a one-bedroom home for their 4-member family because they can find nothing else. They're on lists with various apartment housing places, the lists are up to 50 people to 100 people, and they never seem to be able to get to the top of the list. So I experience it that way. Also, something I want to share to the commissions is that I encourage you to take a peek on Craigslist. Go under Housing Wanted. You'll see 10 to 15 different families, individuals looking for housing in this area. They either are moving to the area or have lived in the area all their life, and what they can afford is anywhere from like $250 a month to maybe $1,000 to $1,200 a month, and they're struggling. You can read the stories in there, and you'll get a better feel for the need in the area. The rental industry here in the Grand Traverse area is large. In my experiences, there are all kinds of people that want to rent. It would be, and I keep thinking about how many people who don't have housing need to rent, that if only that industry and that business could be captured, it would be phenomenal. In my experiences of talking with people who need housing, we're talking about people who are retired, live in another state, want to be here temporarily for maybe 2-3 months to be close to their daughter's family, to the person who is going to be here just for 6 months because they're going to be going through a training program at Munson Medical Center. And then everything in between, where there's families who need housing to the young professional who is just getting started here in town. And so my point is, it's hundreds and hundreds of people that need rental space in this town. If only the business leaders could appreciate that and capture it, you'd be surprised what would be possible. I know there's data that's come from the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments on this issue, but I want to reiterate, as you can see with people who have spoken today, this is about the working poor. Yes, there are some homeless and who really have nothing, but many of the people who need housing are working, okay? We've got a businessman here. We've got a woman who helps with writing from a journalistic standpoint, is running for office. We have two other women who have had businesses of their own or worked in the past, and a gentleman here who is, starting a wonderful media studio company. But some of us are homeless in this group that spoke today, really do not have a place to live. So this is a big issue, and I hope that by what has been expressed today, that you have a better idea that these are regular human beings. So with that, I want to say we need to do something about this. And one of the things that's important to me, and it's been alluded to here already, is that the economic depth in this community needs to match up with the housing needs. As mentioned earlier, hospitality and the service industry is big in our community, and people aren't making enough money. They have part-time jobs with it. They can't piece enough part-time jobs together to make a living. They have, as a result, I have a couple of suggestions. And one is that maybe there should be like a manpower for the hospitality industry, whereby there's some kind of a unified effort with the hotels, the restaurants, whereby maybe 1 or 2 human resources, HR people, can put together a manpower kind of operation where people can submit how many hours they want to work, what hours a day they can work, and then be trained to work in several hotels, be trained to work in several restaurants, and together the owners and the managers of these different places and businesses can tap in to the manpower, the hospitality manpower, and so that people can work, instead of just 15 hours a week, they can work 40 hours a week. On the social side of things that I need to mention, people are living with people they probably don't want to live with because they can't find housing. They're sleeping on people's couches. They're renting a room that maybe they could afford for 6 weeks, but after that they can't. People are forming partnerships and getting married to people. I mean, I know I'm stretching this a little far, but to people that only because of financial reasons they are together. And then you wonder why there are social ills. As mentioned earlier, we do have zoning issues, but you know what? If we change some of those zoning issues, we can make some cute houses. Look at this cute Tudor. I think it's maybe 800 square feet. Here's one a little bit more for the cabin people. Okay, it's another one. It's only 600 square feet. Here's a solar version with a nice big front porch. Why can't these be in around town? Why can't these be on lots that are now empty? Why can't old homes that are now in foreclosure be transformed into something like this? This is what they're doing in Austin, Texas. Here's I think it's about a 400 square foot. It's a home that they're experimenting with in Austin, Texas. It's for people to rent. It's particularly for the homeless, for only like $210 a month. All right? The issue of people being concerned about having neighbors that are homeless or near homeless, not making a lot of money, well, you know what? Again, they're regular people, and they work, and they want to work more, and they want to work for a better wage. So it'd be great, again, if the hospitality industry can make it better. So in closing, this video is reflective of the working poor, people who are in need of housing. We hope that we've presented some creative ideas and ideas that the combined County Commission and City Commission will take into consideration. Again, the Project for Civic Engagement is trying to bring about sensible ideas, and if there's any help that we could provide, we will be happy to do so. Thank you for your time.